When a loved one is diagnosed with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, emotions run high, but there are also important legal and financial decisions that also need to be made. So today we're joined by Joshua Reams, board chair for the Alzheimer's Association and an attorney who actually specializes in elderly law, as well as Alex Neva. She's with the Alzheimer's Association here in Idaho, and they're both here to share some information for families on how we can better prepare and protect our loved ones when we are faced with this type of situation. So it's great to have both of you here. And I'd mentioned emotions run high, right? Having a family member diagnosed with Alzheimer's or a form of dementia is not only an emotional process, but as we're talking about today, there's a lot of legal things in there. Right. However, help us with the beginning. Help others who have never been in this situation understand how an Alzheimer's or dementia diagnosis can really impact the family unit and where we begin emotionally in that process.
Yeah, I think for a lot of individuals, this is all new.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's a lot to do. Where do I start? Who do I call? And we need to remember, in Idaho, there's 30,000 Idahoans living with Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
But for every individual, there's 2 to 3 caregivers. So you're really navigating 2 things. One individual with the disease, but also how are we going to care for this? How does this affect our family as a whole? And so honestly, we encourage people just make the first call. Individuals sometimes are, what is Alzheimer's disease?
Yeah.
What do I need to do first? I have a list of 100 things and I don't know where to start. So really, we're here to just help. Every family's in a different situation.
Yes.
Different individuals have different needs, different care and support team. So we don't really treat it as a cookie cutter approach. It's let's sit down and talk. Where are you? Where are we at in the diagnosis? And how can we help? What is it that you need?
Oh, that's great. Okay. And let's talk about the portion that once we're through kind of the whole, well, we're not fully through, right? But once we've wrapped ourselves a bit around the emotional part, we really do have to sit down and take a look at the legal portion. So what are some of the most important legal documents somebody should actually have prepared when this diagnosis hits a family?
This is one of the questions that many families have is what is that next step, particularly from a legal perspective. And a lot of people think of estate planning as something that happens when we pass away, which is partially true, but good estate planning starts early and it focuses on what life looks like for that 10, 20, 30-year period, depending on what's going on in that family's life. At a bare minimum, we always recommend there's at least 4 basic documents that everyone should have. Okay. And that's a last will and testament that dictates what happens when we pass away. And then we have financial powers of attorney that allow for family members, spouses to help with the financial side of the equation. Often we assume we're always going to be able to make our own decisions, but sometimes we can't, or sometimes it's just nice to have some help when it comes to those financial side of the equation. We also have healthcare powers of attorney that allow us to make healthcare decisions, and advanced directives would talk about what do you want at the end of your life and what does that look like. A lot of what I talk about with my clients is tell us what you desire, communicate to your family your wishes, your goals, your dreams, so that way those things can actually happen as you go through this experience.
Okay, and then really quick, share some real quick mistakes that you hope people can navigate around.
Many times people wait too long to ask these questions. They don't call and ask questions. And many times from an estate planning perspective, we have to worry about things like capacity, whether or not the person is able legally to sign the documents I just mentioned. And many times they cannot. And so we spend a significant amount of time in court pursuing what's called a guardianship and conservatorship, where a judge has to step in and make decisions for us. That's a very time-consuming process and very expensive. And so I always say plan early and often in order to avoid some of those greater expenses and, quite frankly, what can be really tough family dramas that don't need to be in the courtroom.
Exactly. That's such brilliant advice, let alone from Alzheimer's or dementia diagnosis, but just like a serious illness in the family, right? Get ahead of those legal situations and those conversations so you can avoid the drama later, and especially while the individual is able to maybe even participate on some of the decision-making still, right? Okay, this can be very overwhelming. This is a hard topic. So once again, Alexis, tell us, how do people make that first step? Where do they go so they can start getting everything in place like Josh is recommending?
First step is to just give us a call. You can look at our website, alz.org. You can find our local office here in Boise. Just make that decision that you want to learn more. We have education services, we have support groups, learn from other families. I've been through this before. This is what helped us. I think we really need to rely on each other and our community, and we don't have all the answers, but we work with partners. in the community that can help guide you through what will be best and let us give you the resources so you can make that decision for you and your family.
Yes, I love that sense of community. So incredibly important. All right, and where do people go to learn more? Again, give us that website.
alz.org.
Wonderful. Both of you, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Greatly
you.
appreciate your expertise and your insight on a very difficult situation. All right, everyone, stick around. More to come here on Idaho Today right after the break.